7 p.m. ESPN, Ole Miss at UGA. UGA is a 10.5-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 58.5. Here's some keys to victory, I think, for Ole Miss in this game. Got to get after the quarterback. Ole Miss is very good at doing so. They're ranked 7th in the nation in sack rate. Gonna have to get Carson back on his butt. Okay, first of all, because I don't think overall this Ole Miss defense is one that is just overpowering necessarily. Whereas, like I said, they're very good at getting after the quarterback. Going to have to be really, really good at it this week because that Georgia offensive line does not allow a lot of sacks. I think they've allowed 9 for the year, if I'm not mistaken. So not a team that's just handing out sacks for you. So either got to get Carson Beck on his butt or got to get him off his spot. We've seen Carson Beck, and this is every quarterback. It's not just Carson Beck. Any quarterback you get pressure on, they're not going to be as good. I mean, that's basic football 101. Ole Miss has 65 plays of 20-plus yards this year, and that's 3rd in the nation. This is a team that hits you with explosive plays, and that's how they operate, okay? I don't think that works to their favor in this game because I think if you're Ole Miss, I think what you're really wanting to do is you're wanting to grind the clock. Ole Miss is not good at that. They're not very good at running clock and time of possession. They're ranked bottom 60, okay, in America. So in this game, I think Ole Miss has got to – obviously they got to run the ball. This Ole Miss offense doesn't work unless you can run the ball successfully. That's 100% true, no doubt about it. And then on 3rd down, they're 97th, Mason. 97th on 3rd down. So this is an offense that is really relying on the big play and has to have success running the football to overall be successful. UGA is number 12 in the country at preventing those big plays. UGA is very good on opponent 3rd down, allowing a 1st down on 3rd. So I think that's strength on strength. And then I think Georgia's got the advantage as far as being able to throw over the top of this defense. I think this is for Ole Miss's sake, this is a good front 7 compared to what they've had. The back end is what concerns me. And the back end is where Georgia's been buttering their own bread.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know that I'm taking Georgia in 10.5. I think that's a lot. But man, this crowd is going to be into it. It's a night game in Sanford Stadium. Everything's on the line. Georgia wins right here. They win the East and go to Atlanta. No matter what happens the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, I'm taking Georgia to win. I'm thinking maybe this number comes down to like a 10. I'd like it much better at 10. The 10 and the hook is kind of tough there. But I like Georgia to win this thing. I don't know if it'll be by double digits, though. Give me Ole Miss plus 10.5. And I could also see a possible over situation here.
That's interesting. So, Ole Miss is coming off of a close win against Texas A&M. And, this is Texas A&M is a team that they should have beat handedly, realistically, from a rankings perspective, right? And the way you kind of break these teams down and what Ole Miss has been able to do versus what Texas has been able to do. Like a casual fan would look at that and go like, yeah, they win easily. I actually picked Texas A&M to win that game. And I was really close to being right. It would have been a pretty big upset, but they had a bad kicker apparently that couldn't kick a field goal. So they lost the game because of that. But it's a win. It's a win in the SEC, and that's tough to do. They were able to do some nice things on offense that I thought that they might struggle with in that game. Judkins had over 100 yards on the ground and 3 scores, which Alabama had only given up 2 scores all season long on the ground. So for Ole Miss to be able to do that, I think was really impressive. Dart also had almost 400 yards through the air. So really solid offensive performance against a really good defense. That was a really strong Texas A&M defense, and something that really they're going to have to replicate against the Bulldogs this week because they're facing another elite defense, possibly a better defense as well. speaking of the Bulldogs, Georgia finally got its first ranked win over a number 15 Missouri as they beat them at home by 9 points. Missouri gave Georgia about all they wanted for 4 quarters in that game. The Tigers rushed for over 150 yards and passed for over 200. But the difference in the game turned out to be Brady Cook's 2 interceptions. Georgia's offense showed up in the second half as they went on to win 21-30. But without those 2 interceptions, I don't know that Georgia really gets it done. But in this matchup, Ole Miss, surprisingly, when I was digging through the stats here, I found that Ole Miss was actually better at stopping the run than Georgia is. They're giving up just 3.44 yards per carry, whereas Georgia's given up 3.76. This isn't the same Georgia defense that we've grown accustomed to seeing the past couple of years. Georgia has some holes, and they haven't been as good against the run, but have a really strong secondary. Now, Georgia's going to be without Jamon Dumas-Johnson in this game. They're starting middle linebacker, and I think that's a big deal. He's a big middle linebacker. He's really good at stuffing the run, but Georgia recruits that position very well. They've got a couple of 5-star freshmen that are ready to take his spot. C.J. Allen will be ready to step up, and another 5-star in Smile Munden's going to be right there in the middle to help and to lead that freshman, and to stop the run. So yeah, Ole Miss, they're better at stopping the run than Georgia, but Georgia, they like to pass the ball. That's what they want to do. And Georgia's actually better at stopping the pass, on defense. So it's interesting. It's 2 different styles. Ole Miss runs the football well, stops the run pretty well. Georgia passes the football well, stops the pass pretty well. It's a matchup of 2 different styles, and based on those stats, you would say that this should be a really close game. But one stat that suggests that UGA has an advantage is on third down. You mentioned it, Mark. On offense, UGA is converting on third down over 55% of the time, and their opponents are converting just 26% of the time, whereas Ole Miss is only converting 36% of the time on offense. Their opponents are converting almost 40%. So this is where UGA has been really devastating. They extend drives on offense, and on defense, they're forcing the other team to punt the ball. And I think you see a lot more of that in this game. If Ole Miss is going to win this game, it's because they're forcing Georgia to kick field goals. I don't think that they're gonna stop Georgia from driving down the field and getting in the red zone. But can they stop them? That's something Georgia hasn't been very good at, is in red zone efficiency. But if you stop them and they kick a field goal, that's just as good as 4 points. So if they're able to do that, maybe like on 3 drives, I think that it stops the bleeding down. And then they've got to do the opposite. When they get into the red zone, they got to score, because Georgia's going to get some stops. They're gonna force you to punt. But whenever you get the opportunity, you have to take advantage of it. And you mentioned as well, Ole Miss's sack rate, they're top 10 in the country at almost a 10% sack rate. So they've got to rush. Pete Golden, that's what he wants to do. He wants to rush the quarterback. They're going to have some schemes, some blitzes schemed up, and I think that Georgia's going to have their plate full up front. And if Ole Miss is going to win, they're probably going to have about 6 sacks in this game as well. Maybe force a turnover or 2.
And they're going to have to be way better on third down than what you just talked about.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. But as for my prediction in this game, I think that Ole Miss, I've got Ole Miss at 23 and Georgia at 36. I've got Georgia covering. And in that situation, the over would hit by half a point. So pretty tight on the over-under in my eyes.
I think mash the over is the play that I think I'm going to play on Friday. We'll see how it goes, because I could see this one even getting up to like 42-28 or something like that. That would not surprise me a bit to see Georgia give up 28 to Ole Miss, because I think, look, this is a good Ole Miss offense. They are potent. Lane Kiffin is one of the best play callers and schemers there is in college football, but he's going against one of the best defensive coaches in all of college football, and Kirby Smart. These guys know each other. They know what each other are about, and I like the advantages that Georgia brings to the table here to win this game, but could be a tight one, and we know that it's going to be a really good game. I think at least through 3 quarters, and then maybe Georgia pulls away at the end.